Wes Thuhal min Freyon, and welcome to yet another video. Finally a decent adaptation, my friends. Yes, I say this each and every week when I am making my House of the Dragon reviews. And welcome, my dear friends. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome to European Law, a channel of one little teensy tiny bloke from Central Europe who likes to rant about good things or bad things on the internet. A man who has devoted both his personal and academic life to the good things, the finer things, the works of fantasy of the 20th century, as well as the good old English literature. And that is why, from a huge part, this channel is devoted to defending these works of art, and that is why I am reviewing these shows like House of the Dragon and The Rings of Power. So feel free to go back and check out my other videos and other reviews. Now, of course, you can't escape but compare House of the Dragon to The Rings of Power, which, well, it is almost at this point incomparable as far as the quality goes and the level of actually adapting the source material. Now, of course, the source material, The Fire and Blood, that was published in 2018, if I am not wrong, is more of a chronicle-like book that, of course, was written by several unreliable narrators, maesters and historians and people like that. But to a bigger or lesser extent, we can trace and follow the events that happened in the book and see them in this particular adaptation. Now, I would like to devote and dedicate this review, this particular review of this episode to one actor, to Paddy Considine, who stole the show 100%, and absolutely he deserves an Emmy for his performance. And if he doesn't win an Emmy, I am going to riot. Now, of course, this review will contain spoilers, so if you don't want this episode to be spoiled for you, leave, watch the episode, come back and enjoy my review. Now, of course, we follow the final days, basically, of Viserys Targaryen and the civil war in the House of Targaryen, or the war between the House of Targaryen and Velaryon, to be begun very soon. And it needs to be said that the events have been shifted a little bit as far as the time goes. It is not a huge time compression of the kind that happened in The Rings of Power. Of course, we know that they compressed about 3,500 years into a couple of weeks. Here, we know that Viserys Targaryen has been ill, has been sick for some times. It looks as if it was years and years, decades maybe, and he has been slowly, almost falling apart after cutting himself on the Iron Throne. Now here it is really the final stage, and I have to give the props to the makeup artists and to the CGI people that made him look like an absolute husk. You feel sorry for him. It's even scary. You look at the guy and you say, oh, I wouldn't like to meet that guy in a dark alleyway. But of course, a huge part of this credit goes to the acting performance of Paddy Considine, who was able to portray a suffering person perfectly. Now, in the book, he cut himself on the Iron Throne about at the same time when there was this struggle between Rhaenyra and Alicent, and when there was this dispute about the succession of the House Velaryon. Now, of course, in the TV show, we've got only one man who is against one of the Rhaenyra's sons to become the successor of the House Velaryon, because obviously everybody know that her kids are bastards, and that their father was actually Sir Howard Strong. Now, in the book, there were a couple of lords, lesser lords, that were demanding that they become the successor of the House Velaryon. And Viserys listened to them, and then he got their tongues cut off. And right after they got their tongues cut off for such a heresy, which of course was true, as we all know, he cut himself, and then of course he slowly started, falling apart. I mean, he got sick, and there was one maester, and he amputated his fingers, as we could see in the show as well, so that saved him. But then gradually, of course, he never fully recuperated, and then he died in his sleep some years later. Now, I especially loved the scene when Rhaenyra, in the show, now I'm talking about the show, when Rhaenyra was about to put her case and then defend her children and defend herself, and then Paddy Considine, Viserys, walked into the room, and all went silent, and he slowly approached the Iron Throne. You can see the real struggle in the person when he knew that he has to go, he has to reach the Iron Throne, whatever it costs, and that he has to do it by himself, with no help, and that everything depends on it, that he has to defend his daughter, and that he has to defend his grandchildren. And then, of course, the scene when there were two more scenes that made you, or three really, that made you cheer, that made you almost applaud and clap. The first one was when Otto Hightower had this very angry look, like, "Oh no, what are you doing here?" And Viserys went like, "I will be sitting on the Iron Throne today." Oh, that was awesome. And then, of course, when Daemon Targaryen helped him up, and he picked up his crown and put his crown on Viserys' head. And then, of course, when Daemon Targaryen kind of decapitated I'm now blanking on the name of the brother, the Velaryon bloke who wanted to be the successor to the throne of the Velaryons. But you know who I'm talking about. But then, of course, you have to appreciate the character of Viserys Targaryen in general. He was one of the very few kings who was not a warmonger, who was not a huge conqueror, whose realm was in a state of a relative peace, mind you, throughout his reign, the entire reign. Now, of course, there were smaller wars, like the Stepstones, and struggles and battles, but all in all this huge madness and the civil war and the bloodbath and things like that started only after he died. But that is, of course, to become. And the other thing was that it was quite interesting to observe how it all starts slowly, the struggle, and that it escalates and escalates and escalates, especially between the children and the grandchildren of Viserys, especially between the kids of Alicent and the kids of Rhaenyra Targaryen. So this episode, in my eyes, was the best one so far. Paddy Considine, he overshadowed everybody and everything this time, and even Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen, who has been one of my favorite characters so far. But as far as my favorite characters, like let's say top 3, it still stands Viserys, Daemon, and Rhaenyra Targaryen, although I still regret that they changed the actress. This new actress is good enough. She's good. All the actors in the show are competent. But the actress before her, she was awesome. She was great. The young Rhaenyra Targaryen, I still think that they should have kept her there, maybe age her up a little bit using makeup. They can do it. Come on, don't tell me they can't. They can bloody create Luke Skywalker on the computer, all CGI'd, right? So this is really my only gripe as far as this episode, that I miss my Rhaenyra Targaryen. But otherwise, I really have nothing else to say but props to Paddy Considine. I'm sorry for making the entire review just about him this time, but if there is something so spectacular, I just have to point it out and stick to it throughout the entire episode. It was even better than the most famous scene from the Game of Thrones when Tyrion Lannister had his speech in King's Landing. I would say that tops that. At least for me, in my humble opinion. Alright, my friends, let me know in the comments down below what you think. And that will be all today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm out of here.